Hi everyone, Bird here on behalf of MovieGameNostalgia.com. Thanks for joining me for this little box set special today. So we're having a look at a new mini-series that's just aired on the BBC and is now also available on Netflix. So it's a BBC Netflix collaboration. And it's a little thing called Dracula, which is one of my, obviously from being a child, one of my favourite things. Just a little bit about, before we go on to the mini-series and obviously the fallout and the good things and the bad things, etc. Just a little bit about Dracula. I mean, obviously, a little bit of history of the thing. Dracula is an 1897 Gothic horror novel by the Irish author Bram Stoker. He introduced the character of Count Dracula and established many conventions of subsequent vampire fantasy. The novel tells the story of Dracula's attempt to move from Transylvania to England so that he may find new blood and spread the undead curse, and the battle between Dracula and a small group of men and women led by Professor Abraham Van Helsing. Dracula has been assigned to many literary genres, including vampire literature, horror fiction, Gothic novel, invasion literature, etc. The novel has spawned numerous theatrical film and television interpretations. I mean, obviously, one of the most modern ones obviously is the Twilight things, isn't it? Obviously this is the board game, so this is a spin-off from it, but there's various board games and things around, isn't it? But obviously Twilight was one of the biggest recent modern spin-offs to the old Dracula franchise, Dracula links. Bram Stoker himself, between 1879 and 1898, Stoker was a business manager for the Lyceum Theatre in London. He supplemented his income by writing many sensational novels, his most successful being the vampire tale Dracula, published on the 26th of May, 1897. Parts of it are set around the town of Whitby, one of my popular places where he spent summer holidays. Before writing Dracula, Stoker spent 7 years researching European folklore and stories of vampires, being most influenced by Emily Gerard's 1885 essay Transylvania Superstitions, which includes content about a vampire myth. Some historians are convinced that the historic figure Vlad III Dracula, often called Vlad the Impaler, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute, was a model for Stoker's count, although there is no supporting evidence. Stoker borrowed only scraps of miscellaneous information. According to one expert about this bloodthirsty tyrant of Wallachia, and there are no comments about him in Stoker's working notes. Dracula scholar Elizabeth Miller has remarked that aside from the name and some mention of Romanian history, the background of Stoker's count bears no resemblance to that of Vlad III Dracula. From 1890 to 1897, Stoker was a member of the London Library, where markings as Sabine Baring Gould's Book of Werewolves, Thomas Brown's Pseudo-Xolica Experimenca, A.F. Cross's Roundabout the Carpathians, and Charles Bonner's Transylvania are attributed to Stoker's research for Dracula. Dracula was not an immediate bestseller when it was first published, although reviewers were unstinted in their praise. The contemporary Daily Mail ranked Stoker's powers above those of Mary Shelley, obviously from the old Frankenstein thing, and Edgar Allan Poe, as well as Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. He didn't make much money for Stoker. In the last year of his life, he was so poor that he had to petition for a compassionate grant from the Royal Literary Fund, and his widow was forced to sell his notes and outlines of the novel at a Sotheby's auction in 1913, where they were purchased for a little over £2. I don't know how much that would be worth in these days. But then F.W. Murnau's unauthorised adaptation of the story was released in theatres in 1922 in the form of Nosferatu. Stoker's widow took a front and joined the legal battle that followed. The novel's popularity started to grow. So, yeah, I mean, there's always, in bad news, there's always good news, isn't there? I mean, obviously, this Nosferatu movie was from 1922. If you've not watched that, please go back and watch that. It's a superb hour and 32 minutes, but it's a superb watch. Please watch that. And the guy who starred as the vampire, Matt Schreck, obviously he was outstanding in this movie, and he was a bit of a weird guy. There was another film about Matt Schreck, actually, which featured a lot of Nosferatu in it. I forgot the title for now. Please forgive me. I've only just thought of it, but please look for that anyway. A Matt Schreck sort of biopic. So have a look out for that as well. That's really good. It also starred Alexander Granach and Gustav von Wagenhelm. On Internet Movie Database, Nosferatu scores a healthy 7.9 out of 10. And if you look at the plot, you can see the links to Dracula. It's about a Wisberg German-based estate agent, Nock, who dispatches his associate Hutter to Count Orioch's castle, not Dracula, Orioch's castle in Transylvania, as the Count wants to purchase an isolated house in Wisberg, Germany. They plan on selling him the one across the way from Hutter's own home. Hutter leaves his innocent wife Ellen with some friends while he's away. Hutter's check is an unusual one. I mean, Hutter is obviously, even using the same letter of the surname, aren't they? Is unusual, with many locals not wanting to take him near the castle where strange events have been occurring. Once at the castle, Hutter does manage to sell the Count the house, but he also notices that he feels unusual occurrences, primarily feeling like there is a dark shadow hanging over him, even in the daytime when the Count is unusually asleep. Hutter eventually sees the Count's sleeping chamber in a crypt, and based on a book he has recently read, believes the Count is really a vampire or Nosferatu. While Hutter is trapped in the castle, the Count, hiding in a shipment of coffins, makes his way to Wisborg, causing death along the way. I mean, the links to Bram Stoker's novel are so obvious, and obviously the widow and family did bring an action against Nosferatu, obviously, and it was won. All prints were ordered to be destroyed because of the copyright infringement. As obviously they ruled against the film and its makers. Unfortunately for us, obviously prints of the film still remain, and we still have the film wonderfully. So please watch that if you've never watched that. The next noticeable one was probably the Dracula of 1931, and one of my early favourites as a kid watching this back. And that was only an hour and 15 minutes. And it starred Bela Lugosi, Helen Chandler, and David Manners, the wonderful Bela Lugosi in this. It's worth trying to find this one out. You should be able to stream this quite easily. And it's about the ancient vampire Count Dracula arrives in England and begins to prey on the virtuous young Mina. So we do have Mina in this, which obviously is going back to the books and the latest adaptation. This is produced by Universal, and it was actually based on a 1924 stage play, Dracula. I think you've probably still can see the scripts for that as well available on the internet. And it premiered at the Roxy Theatre in New York in February 1931, and it was released 2 days later throughout the United States. Newspapers reported that members of the audiences fainted in shock at the horror on the screen. This publicity, shrewdly orchestrated by the film studio, helped ensure people came to see the film, if for no other reason than curiosity. I mean, it's debatable whether any of this was true or not. Dracula was a big gamble for a major Hollywood studio to undertake. In spite of the literary credentials of source material, it was uncertain if an American audience was prepared for the serious, full-length supernatural chiller. This was a horror story with no comic relief or trick ending that downplayed the supernatural. Nervous executives breathed a collective sigh of relief when Dracula proved to be a huge box office sensation. And obviously it's produced many famous actor-led movies. Obviously we're talking Christopher Lee, and obviously his backup, Mr. Van Helsing, played by Peter Cushing. This was my first really introduction into Dracula. And obviously Christopher Lee himself was born on 27th of May 1922 and died 7th of June 2015. He had a career spanning 70 years, and obviously was well known for portraying villains, and became best known for this role as Count Dracula in a sequence of Hammer horror films in the 1970s. I mean, these were part of my personal favourites. I even remember the Hammer House of Horror when I was a kid. And even though it was a school night, it used to be on a Monday night on British TV. And even though it's a school night, obviously I lived with my sister from being quite young. So I did have the benefit of staying up and watching these things. So I did get away in that, obviously. Christopher Lee and Dracula and Peter Cushing were amongst my favourites. I mean, modern adaptations, if you come into the later ones, we got Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1992, which I rewatched quite recently. It is reasonably close to the book. It's 2 hours and 8 minutes, and it tells the story, as ever, of the centuries-old vampire Count Dracula comes to England to seduce his barrister John Harker's fiancée, Mina Murray, and inflicts havoc in the foreign land. This starred the wonderful Gary Oldman, Winona Ryder, and of course Anthony Hopkins, and directed by the wonderful Francis Ford Coppola. And it's got an Internet Movie Database in a 7 out of 10, which I think is okay now looking back at it. I think I probably would have given it a higher rating at the time, but it's aged okay. But yeah, if you probably have seen that, but if you watch this new Dracula and want to go back and watch something a bit more like the book, then yeah, please go and watch that. Obviously, in 1994, we had the wonderful Interview with the Vampire with Neil Jordan directing Anne Rice from Anne Rice's novel, and it obviously starred Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, and Antonio Banderas, and that'll give a wonderful modern twist on it, didn't it? And it's a vampire telling his epic story of love, life, betrayal, loneliness, and hunger, and that was really, really good. And one of my personal favourites, when I used to have the video shop in the 90s in the UK, was this little beauty, which I'll just show you now, which eagle-eyed spotters may have caught it on the thumbnail. But obviously, the wonderful late Leslie Nielsen in the Dracula Dead and Loving It. This is the poster of it. I mean, a fantastic. If you want a comedy, basically, obviously, a lot of this new BBC one, there's comedic elements to it. But if you want a straightforward comedy, then please, Dracula Dead and Love It. Go and rewatch that. And a lot of the wording is actually taken from the Dracula novel as well. A lot of the words, the script, the lines in the script are actually taken from. So it's quite a good take on it as well. Obviously, that was put together by Mel Brooks. Only got on the Internet Movie Database in 5.9 out of 10, which is pretty pathetic, to be honest with you. I think it deserved far more than that. I don't know why they had such a downer. And if you're thinking of Vlad the Impaler, the origins of Dracula, then this is one of my favourite movies that came out and was made for TV, and obviously it was brought out on the video in the UK, and it's The Dark Prince, The Legend of Dracula. That was a cracking, again, that's the poster for the movie there. Again, that was one of my sort of favourite, if you like, incarnations of the original Vlad the Impaler, and that came out in the year 2000, so at the millennium. And the story's in hopes of avenging his father's death as well as liberating the kingdom of Turkish annexation. Vlad III Dracula, who we talked about before, renowned as Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler, raises an army and sets a bloody revolution ablaze that hastily sweep throughout the land. It starred Rudolph Martin, Jane March, and Christopher Brandon. Yeah, again, it's very tenuous, the links to real life and history, but obviously that's a great film. If you want to watch something entertaining on Vlad the Impaler, I'm not going to say it's true to life. There's probably documentaries out there far more true. And then we had, sadly, on the 2012, we even had an Argento-inspired Dracula 3D, but the less said about that, the better. But we're not going to dwell on that. But if you want to go back and have a look at Dracula 3D, from 2012, please do so. And the BBC aren't new to Dracula. They've done this before. They've done a couple of productions. In 1977, they did the financed a film, a BBC TV production, Count Dracula, 2 hours and 30 minutes, starred Lewis Jordan as Dracula and Frank Finlay as Van Helsing. And it got a healthy rating of 7.5 out of 10 and was generally well received. So please seek that one out, Count Dracula 1977 from the BBC. They also did another one in 2006, just called Dracula, starring the wonderful David Suchet as Van Helsing and Mark Warren as the Count. They did that in 2006. That only got an Internet Movie Database rating of 5.1 out of 10, so it wasn't quite received as well. I'll go back and watch that one because I do not remember the David Suchet one, so we'll watch that. And of course, the BBC, through their children's programming, did the wonderful CBBC, even offered us a series entitled Young Dracula, which ran over 66 episodes at 25 minutes approximately each between 2006 and 2014, and it's got a really good 7.7 out of 10 overall rating on IMDb. And for the younger fans, I mean, Young Dracula was excellent. So 7.7 out of 10 rating is really good. So that's always worth it. I've watched a few of those episodes. I may dip in and out of that one, but that's Young Dracula that's obviously on the CBBC. And then it brings us to this, doesn't it? It brings us to the latest incarnation from the BBC in collaboration with Netflix with this Dracula 2020. It's a mini-series that started on New Year's Day on BBC and was shown over 3 nights, and is now available, I think, from Netflix now, early January. And it's classed as a drama horror, so a drama horror comedy question mark. In 1897, Transylvania, the blood-drinking Count draws his plans against Victoria, London. This follows Dracula from his origins in Eastern Europe to his battle with Van Helsing's descendant and beyond. And the creators of this, obviously, we've got Stephen Moffat, who was obviously created the Sherlock, had a lot to do with the Sherlock TV series. And we've got Mark Gatiss, who I absolutely adored and put together the League of Gentlemen. He actually does have a small part in this mini-series as well in the 3rd episode. But Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat created this. So with Mark Gatiss being involved, League of Gentlemen, which is a superb series. If you've never seen that, go back and watch League of Gentlemen. Absolutely fantastic British dark comedy drama. So with Mark Gatiss, I had a feeling there's going to be a bit of humour involved. Stars, well, we've got the Clay Spang plays Dracula, Dolly Wells plays Sister Agatha, and John Heffernan plays Jonathan Harker. They're the 3 main protagonists in it. And it's 3 episodes. Episode 1 was The Rules of the Beast, which is based in Transylvania. Episode 2 was A Blood Vessel, which by its name is based, obviously, on the ship that's coming over, the Dementor, is it? It's coming over to the UK. And the episode 3 was entitled Dark Compass, which covers his travels in the UK. I won't say much more than that. Gatiss did confirm that Dracula will play against type and be the hero in this latest incarnation, which I don't know where he got. He's not really a hero. Not when you watch the film. I don't know where he really got that comment from. Is it any good? Well, Internet Movie Database, obviously a lot of people have been commenting on this already, and it's got a healthy overall rating of 7.6 out of 10. That's not too bad. Individual episode ratings, I mean, episode 1 got an 8.5, episode 2 an 8.4, but last night's episode, as I'm doing this on the day after the last episode aired on BBC, last episode only got 6.6 out of 10, which isn't great. One of the users, TJMF, he wrote this on the 4th of January, so he wrote this morning. The series starts off really well. I do share a lot of these sentiments, actually. I'll do my little review in a minute. The series starts off really well. The storyline in the first episode is great. This is TJMF. I like the whole gothic vibe, and the story seemed interesting. The setting and the acting, for the most part, it all looked good. The first 2 episodes I found very entertaining. Dracula has mystery to him, which I'm looking forward to being revealed, but until we get this, it's difficult to say how good a vampire story it is. It's definitely a different one, that's for sure, but I like that they tried to be different. Dracula himself comes across witty with a devilish charm. Van Helsing has humour in the character's favour. Later on, the Van Helsing character gets more serious, which the actress suits more suited to, I believe. I have to say that I was impressed by how episode 3 ends. I was fine with the episode right up until the ending. I can get past minor plot holes, but I now believe this will be one of those series that you'll have to leave your brain at the door. It's a bit up and down for me. It has the entertainment value, but it's a good series rather than being a top quality one. Yeah, I mean, I share pretty much those sentiments. The BBC viewing figures actually for episode 1 on New Year's Day, don't forget, so it was a holiday, was 3.55 million. So that's actually watching it live. So that's not people watching it on catch up and recording it and watching it later. It was 3.55 million for episode 1, but that dropped 700,000 for episode 2, so it's only 2.85 million. I've not got the figures for episode 3 yet, but obviously that was a bit worrying, a 700k drop, but that again does quantify the scores, which went down a little bit slightly, didn't they? MGN review, I mean, I wrote this for Movie Game Nostalgia. It'll be on my Movie Game Nostalgia blogs and on Twitter, this review. I'll just quote from the review I've written. I echo a lot of the sentiment, obviously, to that review I've just read out. And I went on to say, and I've said, and this is what I'm saying, being a fan of Dracula since being introduced on television through Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing incarnations, it was with a little trepidation but hope I approached the BBC Netflix adaptation. The BBC, let's say, a mixed success rate with adaptations. Its recent War of the Worlds caused a lot of its fair to say anger, which it did. A lot of people loved it, a lot of people hate it. If you look at in the links below, I did a War of the Worlds review, which has had almost 700 views last time I looked, so please have a look at that. But you do get a wide range of comments, etc. The Christmas Carol, which I watched over Christmas, which I did a movie review on Twitter at nostalgia_movie on my Twitter account. I did a blog on that. Yeah, Christmas Carol was okay. I quite enjoyed that. It did stick reasonably well to the book, so I did enjoy the Christmas Carol adaptation. But as I said, it was trepidation. It was a little bit of trepidation I approached this one. Anyway, 3 episodes, which are really 3 acts, all approximately 90 minutes per episode, so just enough to do the story credit, hopefully. Cinematography-wise, set-wise, it was well shot without seemingly a massive amount spent on the budget. Well, we are talking the BBC, who'd rather throw more actors at something than spend money on scenery. This said, there was nothing wrong with the production, the style and thing. Did it capture the atmosphere a tale like this deserves? At times, yes, though not often enough, sadly, in my opinion. Although by the 3rd episode, things all became a little Torchwood and Doctor Who-ish. Yeah, I'm not going to go any spoilers to this, but yeah, it just became a bit Doctor Who and Torchwoodish for me by the 3rd episode. Acting wise, there was a good array of talent, but the only ones who really kept it all together for me were Dolly Wells as Sister Agatha, although her accent was a little odd to say the least. And Danish actor lead Claes Bang Dracula was just about okay in my opinion. He didn't inspire me at all. His character was a concoction of dark and light, but never really pulled either off successfully. In all fairness, none of the other characters left a lasting impression, and our female lead in the final episode, Lydia West, who played Lucy Westenra, I'll be honest with you, I just found plain annoying. I didn't like her role at all. She just annoyed me most of the last episode, which is a shame because I did like bits of the last episode, but I found Lydia West, not her fault because she acted quite well, but Lucy Westenra, her role, I found a little bit annoying. The storyline went from sticking close to the original very early doors in the early episodes, notably episode 1 and parts of episode 2. Storyline went from sticking close to the original to drifting a million miles away, which it did. Sadly, there were not enough memorable moments within the 4.5 hours to leave a lasting impression. I mean, there's 2 or 3 elements in each episode that stuck out. The cliffhangers were pretty good. The cliffhangers to episode 2 was brilliant, I thought, and the start to episode 3. So the cliffhanger to episode 3 was excellent, just my sort of thing. But unfortunately, it didn't quite live up to that start and finish, start to that cliffhanger, in my opinion. I didn't mind some of the I went on to say, I didn't mind some of the giant leaps they did away from the original, but some good ideas were never really expanded on. Within the limits of a 3-episodic miniseries, there were not enough characters I wanted to spend time with, and there were definitely not enough jumps and scares for a so-called horror adaptation. If you want the real Dracula, read the book or rewatch Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is pretty close enough. Sadly, the ending left me deflated, as my commentator said earlier, and that's perhaps why the 3rd episode scored relatively poorly from the viewers. Overall, it was okay, but again, I feel ratings will be very mixed from the downright hostile to the loved it, which we're going to get. But that's par for the course these days. Yeah, the MGM rating per episode. Episode 1, Rules of the Beast, I give 7.5 out of 10. Episode 2, Blood Vessel, I also give a kind 7.5 out of 10. And episode 3, The Dark Compass, I've only given a 6.5 out of 10. So I'll give an overall rating, an MGM movie game nostalgia rating of 7 out of 10. Yeah, I mean, I was left a little bit deflated at the end of last night. As I say, there's some good bits. There's some really good bits, and it does promise a lot. But there's so many things that have happened that within the scope of 3 1.5 hour episodes, you're not really, I want to go deeper. And as I said, most of the characters that are in there, I mean, as I say, apart from the 2 lead characters who were okay. I mean, obviously, Dracula was okay, obviously, the Danish guy. But as I said, the Sister Agatha part was probably the best of all 3 episodes. That was the one I enjoyed the most. But yeah, I mean, you're either going to try and watch this or you're not going to watch it. If you love Bram Stoker's original, then you're going to lose that halfway through the miniseries, basically. It's going to go into new realms, and obviously you can see the hints of League of Gentlemen, Doctor Who, all this sort of thing within there by episode 2.5, episode 3. I mean, episode 2 is also sort of drifts along on a Miss Marple sort of thing as well, which is an unusual thing to say. But it was clear. It was done. It was okay. I mean, Dracula's okay. Please watch it. Let me know in the comments below what you think about it. I thought it was okay. Will I go back and watch it again? I might watch episode 1 and 2 again at some stage. A couple of years, 3, 4 years down the line. I'm not going to go back and watch them now. But yeah, I mean, you say the relevance I enjoyed. I think yeah, I mean, it's just overall they didn't, it wasn't a consistent hit you with stuff, it was jump scares. I mean, it's Dracula. This is Dracula, and there's a couple of scenes that make you sort of, I like to go goosebumpy with a horror film. I don't ever remember, maybe one instance, I think in episode 3, where went a little bit like that. I was a bit hoping to go goosebump because the build up to certain scenes was slow, and you think, something good's gonna really happen here, but it didn't happen. And playing Dracula with a bit of humor, he still had a dark side, obviously, but didn't quite work for me. I mean, obviously, I watched Dracula Dead and loving it again before probably I watched this Dracula. So perhaps that says it all. As I said, I've recently watched Bram Stoker's Dracula. Please read the book as well. And obviously, the things I've mentioned there, go on the internet. There's loads of Dracula stuff out there. So if you're into your old-fashioned Dracula, there's plenty to go at. But please enjoy it, watch it, see what you think. Let me know in the comments below or on Twitter at nostalgia_movie. And thank you for watching this movie game nostalgia.com special. And if you just take a trip over to the website, that'll be great. Obviously, I do rare DVDs, movies, posters, and board games on there. And obviously, if you like these reviews, just check all the playlists and all the links are below. Push the old subscribe button, push the bell notifications so you know these things are coming out, and you give me a thumbs up, even though you might not like Dracula. Please, give me the thumbs up. Don't give a thumbs down for Dracula. And I'm just, yeah. Let me know what you think. As I said, obviously the War of the Worlds got plenty of comments, good and bad, when I reviewed that. So please, I'll share your views with me, and I'll reply to all the comments and let you know my thoughts on what you say, because we're all opinions, aren't we? We're all different. We all have different opinions on things, but I try and be fair, and I hope you do as well with this BBC Netflix effort. Anyway, thanks for watching. Whatever you're going to do the rest of the day, have a great one. Look after yourself, look after your friends, look after your family. And I'll see you all again, hopefully, very, very soon. Bye-bye.